Well, welcome back everybody. In this section we're going to look at the proper order of operations so that we can use many different formulas later on in the course and use them the right way. So at the end of this lesson you'll be able to look at a formula or a series of operations and know what order they should be performed in. As you can see on your screen, there's a couple of formulas given there. Those are just two simple examples. The conversion formulas between Celsius or centigrade and Fahrenheit. Those are two simple formulas, but when you put numbers into those formulas, the operations need to be done in the right order. Otherwise, we don't get the right values and they don't make any sense. So those are a couple of formulas we'll be using later in the course, but in this lesson we just want to focus on how to interpret the different operations you're being given there. So let's get started. Okay, so here's an example. There's a fraction shown there, and there's some addition, there's some multiplication, there's some division, there's some subtraction, and there's a couple of exponents in there. If you were to ask 100 people in the general population what the value of that fraction is, you'd get a lot of different answers. But there's only one that's right, and we want to work through the proper order to make sure that we're all getting the same answer. So we're going to come back and answer this in just a minute. But first of all, let's review something that I'll bet you remember from at some point in math that you've learned before. So when we have more than one operation, we should always do them in this order. We start by doing any work that's inside parentheses. Parentheses tell us that we should prioritize that step. Next, we take care of any exponents. Those are numbers that are multiplied by themselves repeatedly. After we've done all those, we do any multiplication and division that occur in the expression, and we always work left to right if there's ever a tie between two multiplications, two divisions, or any of those two. And then finally we finish by doing any adding and subtracting, and again we work left to right. So the way to remember that order is to always focus on P for parentheses, E for exponents, multiplication and division working left to right, and addition and subtraction working left to right. And you might remember PEMDAS or please excuse my dear Aunt Sally as a way to remember those order of operations. So let's go back to the example we had just a minute ago, and let's see if we can determine the value of that fraction. Okay, as we look at this expression, this is something that we might not agree on, but we want to get to the point where we do all agree. So if we look at this fraction, what's the first thing that your eyes are drawn to? Well, right down here we have parentheses, so we need to take care of the p part of this expression. So we need to figure out what 3 squared times 2 is. Now even within these parentheses we have an exponent and we have multiplication. So the next thing we will take care of is that exponent. So 3 squared, that's 3 times itself. That's the same as saying 9. And then we can do that multiplication. So it becomes 9 times 2, which means the value of this parentheses is actually 18. Now that we've figured out what the value of those parentheses are, we've done all the parentheses in the expression, we should move on and take care of any other exponents. There are a couple other exponents. 2 squared is 2 times 2. So let's rewrite what this expression looks like at this point. This becomes 4 plus 6 times, the 2 squared is 4, over these whole parentheses we already determined was 9 times 2 or 18 minus 4 divided by 4. Okay, and we've done all the exponents. Now we're going to take care of the MD, my dear Aunt Sally. That is to say all multiplication and division, and we're going to work left to right. So in the top of this fraction there's a multiplication. We should do that. This becomes 4 plus 6 times 4 is 24. In the bottom of this fraction we have a 4 divided by 4, which is 1. Your brain is going to want to try and do that subtraction first, and even in the top your brain is going to be tempted to do that 4 plus 6, but have the discipline to know that we're not doing adding and subtracting yet. We're only doing multiplication and division. So that's going to be 18 minus 4 divided by 4 is 1. And now finally we've done all the multiplication and division. We're going to do the addition and subtraction to finish this up. 4 plus 24 is 28. over 18 minus 1 is 17. The value of this fraction is 28/17, or in other words, 1 and 11/17, and we've got the value of the fraction. Okay, so we're going to do just a few more examples, but keep in mind we're just focusing on PEMDAS, always following that order, and we should always get the same consistent results. Let's do a couple more examples. All right, here's just a couple of more. In our top one, we have two sets of parentheses, so we should figure out what those are worth first. In our left parentheses, we have 8 plus 7 times 5 plus 2. Well, we know that we should be working inside the parentheses, which we're going to do. We would then take care of any exponents, but there are none in the left parentheses. So let's do the multiplication and division in this left parentheses. That's 7 times 5. That means this parentheses becomes 8 plus 35 plus 2. And then in our other parentheses, there's an exponent that we need to take care of. 4 squared is 4 times 4, or 16, minus, and 3 times 3, we'll do that multiplication since we did the exponent, that's 9. Now, we can go a little bit further with that. We can now take care of our addition and subtraction, where we're still working inside each parenthesis separately. 8 plus 35 is 43, 44, 45 in the left parentheses. In our right parentheses, we have 16 minus 9, that's 7. Now, this is the first time we've seen this, but we have two sets of parentheses, and there's no operation in between. You might remember that anytime you have two things that are shown next to each other with no other operation, we assume that that is multiplication. So we're going to take 45 times 7 here. 7 times 5 is 35. We'll carry that 3. 28 plus 3 is 31, and so that turns out to be 315. That's the value of that first expression. Okay, let's take a look at the second one. Common mistake here. First of all, let's find our value inside the parentheses. So we have 5 times 4 minus 1 plus 4 squared. Within these parentheses, we better pay attention to that exponent next. So this expression is going to become 2 plus 3. By the way, it's very easy to say 2 plus 3 is 5, but we can't do that because this 3 is going to get multiplied, and we need to figure out what we're multiplying 3 by before we do that addition. Addition is one of the last steps, so don't do it right away. So 2 plus 3 times 5 times 4 minus 1 plus 4 squared, that's 16. Okay, now let's keep working in parentheses. By doing that multiplication, this now becomes 2 plus 3. Again, we can't call that 5 yet. 5 times 4 is 20, minus 1 plus 16. Now that we've done the multiplication inside the parentheses, there is no division. We can add and subtract these. This becomes 2 plus 3 times 20 minus 1 is 19, plus 16 is 35. So here again, it's tempting to say that that's 5 times 35, but it's not. It's 2 plus 3 times 35. 3 times 35 is 105. So this becomes 2 plus 105, and that means that the value of the expression is 107. Okay, one more and I'll give you a couple for practice. Here's another fraction at the bottom. 9 squared minus 6 times 7 plus 2 over a big set of parentheses plus 4. Let's figure out what the value inside the parentheses is. Now here's a case where we have a division, a multiplication, and a multiplication. These three are all a tie. So here's a case where we have to work left to right. We don't want to take 5 times 2 or 2 times 2. We work left to right. So this parentheses becomes 20 divided by 5, that's 4, times 2 times 2. And now we'll keep working left to right. That 4 times 2 is 8, times 2 means the value of these parentheses is 16. So let's rewrite this now. On the top we have 9 squared, which is 81, minus, we did our exponent, so now let's do our multiplication. 6 times 7 is 42 plus 2 over, we already found that the value of these parentheses is 16 plus 4. So we've done all the multiplication and division and exponents and parentheses. Now we can add and subtract. 81 minus 42 is 39 plus 2 is 41 over 16 plus 4 is 20, and 41 over 20 is 2 and 1/20. Okay, your turn. Take a minute and work through these two expressions on the screen. See if you can figure out what the value of each of those is. Unpause the video when you're ready to see if your solutions are correct. Okay, here we go. For the top one, we have 3 times 4 squared times 4 plus 5. We better figure out the value of these parentheses. 4 squared, we know that that's 4 times 4, that's 16. 3 times 16, that's 48. So this problem becomes 48 times 4 plus 5. All right, we better do the multiplication next. So 48 times 4, that's going to be 192 plus 5, and the value of this expression is 197. Hopefully you got 197. And the bottom one, let's start out inside our parentheses here. So you can do this in your head. We better do that multiplication first. That's 24 plus 4 means the value inside parentheses here is 28. Minus 6 times 1 squared. Well, 1 squared is just 1 times 1, so that becomes 6 times 1 plus 4. Okay, we'll do that multiplication next, and this becomes 28 minus 6 times 1 is 6 plus 4. And 28 minus 6 is 22 plus 4 leaves us with 26. And there you have it. Hopefully you got 26 for that second one. Okay, that wraps up this short lesson. Make sure that you work through the practice problems and let me know if there's any that you have trouble with. We're now at the point where we're going to start using calculators for the rest of our work in the course, but this topic is important because even if you have a calculator, depending on the calculator, it's still important that you enter those operations in the right order. So we'll continue on and start using our calculators pretty soon here. We'll see you in the next lesson.